Being a perfectionist is like trying to chase after a unicorn. It doesn't exist. You're chasing after something that will never be achieved, yet you feel like you can't stop until you reach the unicorn. I've been a perfectionist for the better part of my life, and I actually vividly remember the first time I had a perfectionism attack, a phrase that I made up, meaning you're fixated on trying to make something absolutely perfect. It was a movie I made, and there was this one shot where I bumped the camera just a little bit, and I figured out after I shot the film, so I couldn't reshoot the shot, and I was gonna show it at my school film festival. But all I could remember the night before the festival was obsessing and imagining and reimagining that imperfect shot. A shot which I couldn't change, but nonetheless was totally fixated on. That was my introduction to what was to come, a perfectionistic pursuit that has followed me ever since. It mostly shows up when I'm creating art, but also in my everyday life. Let me give you some examples. I'm a part-time video editor, and sometimes I dread starting an edit. When I edit a video, sometimes it's a really anxiety-riddled process, one where I obsess about picking the perfect shot, the perfect sound effect, the perfect music. I'll be looking through a song library for 30 minutes trying to pick the perfect song. There are so many decisions when it comes to editing, and so when you try to make something perfect, it's an exhausting process. It honestly takes the fun out of editing sometimes, which is why I don't want to make these videos too fancy. But editing and creating art is far from the only place my perfectionism shows up. It shows up whenever I have to make a choice. When I'm at the grocery store, sometimes I'll get this debilitating anxiety where I'll be sitting there for like 15 minutes trying to decide what apples to get or what toothpaste to buy, because I feel like there's always a right decision, and if I don't make that right decision, it's the end of the world. And you better believe it shows up in the bigger decisions too. Choosing what college I went to, what classes to take. My perfectionism is usually why I end up doing things last minute, because I get so caught up in the anxiety of the decision that I just can't decide. But it's not just decisions. I remember when I got my first speeding ticket, not that I get speeding tickets a lot, but I almost got a panic attack because I wanted to maintain my perfect driving record. I would get anxious when I got an imperfect grade because I wanted to maintain a high GPA. And it's not just being like, oh man, I got a bad grade. It's this crippling, dreadful anxiety you feel in your chest. Like literally, it's the end of the world, and you can't get it out of your mind no matter what you try. But going back to perfectionism in my art, perfectionism is torturous because you're trying to chase something that's impossible to reach, but yet your brain tricks you into thinking that it's attainable. If you change one more thing in the edit, it'll be perfect. If you just tweak this one last little thing, it'll reach a state of perfection. But that one thing turns into 30, where you keep thinking you're done, but you keep finding more things to change. I'll literally have 20 files on my desktop saying final. But you know, perfectionism is of course a curse, but also, dare I say, somewhat of a blessing. Now I say blessing really lightly because perfectionism really sucks, but it's led me to some of my best edits, to maintain a high GPA, to try to make the most logical decisions in my life. I think that perfectionism in artists is pretty common. A lot of famous painters are perfectionists. Edgar Degas once said, "Perfectionism for me means that I'm never satisfied with what I created. It drives me to always keep striving to do better." Like I said, perfectionism is horrible. It really is. I don't think anyone enjoys the debilitating anxiety they get from trying to be perfect, but it causes you to push the boundaries, go beyond what you thought was possible, make things the best they can possibly be. It's led some of the most famous artists and musicians to create their most well-known pieces. Can you make good art without perfectionism? Sure, but I believe that striving to be perfect leads to the extraordinary. Now that doesn't mean that I should let perfectionism have such a strong pull over my life, dictate how I feel in such a strong way. And I want to start training myself to be okay with imperfection, but it's hard because it's so against what my brain wants. But you can't grow if you always stay in your comfort zone. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know if you also deal with perfectionism, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.